So as an agent, how do you have a creative strategy that gives them the peace of mind that they'll have equity? Simple. They have to do a little work, and buyers historically weren't willing to do that. But if you're creative as an agent and you already have the right construction team, or you already have access to the right people in your community because you've been in the business for a while, you can put those people together in a partnership and create a program where they can get instant equity in their property simply by leveraging something like a 203K. All right, Saul, I think we're live.
All right, it's just you and me today.
It is, yes.
Okay.
When Saul and I were just brainstorming before jumping on the call, he said, you know, if I were an agent today and I were trying to figure out how to get more deals done, I think I would leverage some creative financing. So Saul, do you want to kind of share with the group the first bucket? And there's a few buckets we want to talk about today, but the first bucket that Saul was brainstorming on is, how do you leverage your current loan that probably has great terms if you're looking to sell your home to create an opportunity? So you want to kind of share a little bit about your thinking there, Saul?
Yeah, sure, Carrie. So if you kind of think about a house already got a good loan on it, and know that the financial industry is kind of coming to a standstill as well. It's not like it's booming. So as the interest rates go up, the market kind of slows down over time. And so there might be good loans on property where the people that hold those loans are actually willing to negotiate, and you could end up coming out with a loan takeover, a loan assumption, and there would be hoops you'd have to jump through, but you got to jump through hoops anyway with financing. And so the first bucket of money that's already been approved for the property and might have great financing and might have a motivated lender is the existing on the property. Now, another benefit of this, I think, is really an opportunity to be a consultant and to be more consultative, because you're going to be doing things other agents haven't thought of doing. And so to look for ways to move the property in a slow market, if only just having a conversation about it with the seller. Yeah. All right, makes them think, you know what you're talking about. So there's this bucket of money that's already there, and which might be accessible to a buyer. You'll never know unless you ask. And first you need to do research, and that's going to impress the seller anyway. So that's, what about the existing loan, regardless of what the documentation says? Let's look at it and let's talk to people and let's find out whether or not there's some benefit in using that as part of the ultimate financing on the property. Love it.
And can you share a little bit with the group the type of loans that are typically assumable? Let's imagine that some of our audience today, they don't necessarily know how to even approach that conversation. So let's just look at what would be automatically assumable.
Well, so I don't think, so a couple of terms that are important, right? And so when there are ways to take over a loan, and one way is subject to, and the other way is to actually assume it. One has to do with the original borrower continuing to be liable for the loan, and the new borrower, or as opposed to the other one where the new borrower becomes liable for the loan. So one is subject to, one is assumable. I would say almost all loans are assumable, even if they have due on sale clauses or non-assumability clauses, because it's up to the beneficiary. So it might say so in the documentation, it's up to the lender. It might say that it's not assumable, but you might ask and again, I just had a friend of mine that wanted his daughter and son-in-law to take over the loan on the house, and they had a great loan, and they found out who the holder of the loan was and who was servicing the loan. And it was a big entity, and they contacted them, and they were willing to do that. They were willing to let the daughter and son-in-law step into that loan. And of course, they had to have some down payment in it, right? There's a structure to it, but part of that financing was the existing financing. The next piece is, what position is the seller in? Does the seller actually need all the cash? Do they need all the cash now? Might there be a tax liability if they take all the cash now? And so again, by being in a consultative role, you can sit down and do some investigative work on the existing financing and the motivations of the seller and say, there are other ways to structure a sale on this property. One way you could structure a sale is this: you got your down payment, we got this existing loan, we could go and see if that's assumable, and the balance you might take over time if you don't need the cash now. As a matter of fact, it might fit right into their financial plan, but you'll never know unless you ask.
Yes, yes. What about VA and FHA? Can you share a little for people listening, if they're working with a client who currently has a VA loan, how might that impact things? And what's important for them to educate their client on if their client is the seller who has the VA loan?
Well, so I can tell you what personal experience on VA loans. I think I've used my VA loan 5 times, on like 4 times on one property, right?
Wow, okay.
My wife bought this house in 1967. And so we've been here a long, long time, right? And so the first house I bought, 1978 or so, I had VA eligibility, and I went out. It was real hard to find property, low inventory. You're familiar, right? And so I found a house, 8.75%, and it had a VA loan on it. And at that point, you could take over VA loans even if you weren't a veteran. So there's some rules about whether or not you can take over a VA loan if you're a veteran, and you need to check with the VA or a lender on that. There was this other program, and I think it's still probably available, and that is because I was a veteran, I could substitute my eligibility for the existing veteran's eligibility. That meant I took over his loan. I became the veteran on the loan. He got a certificate of eligibility back, so he could go use it on another property. So there are options with VA loans.
So just to like clarify my understanding on how it typically works now, and it's the same, Saul. If someone comes along and Saul's the seller and he has his VA eligibility tied into the house, and the person who buys it does not have VA eligibility, then his eligibility stays in the house if he assumes the loan, which is why some people are not wanting to have their loan assumed, because they want that eligibility. But guys, here's a pocket of the clients that you'll work with that will want that. If it's a client that's moving on to a retirement community and they're not needing another loan, they would be very happy to have their VA eligibility be assumed and be able to get additional value in the marketplace. So my comment about how to educate your clients is, what would be horrible is if Saul has his eligibility and he thinks he's going to be able to take that and buy his next house, and you don't explain to him, if he does an assumable loan with a non-VA qualified person, that he doesn't have that eligibility still. So it's complicated, and you need to do your own research. I don't want you to take it from me. I want you to actually call the provider, just like Saul said, that has the loan, that's currently holding it, and make sure you understand their terms. And then there's pretty specific requirements for eligibility. So you also need to consult a lender for your client's eligibility with their move, depending on if they make it assumable. But don't overlook that. For us as agents, we like to know exactly what we're doing. And so sometimes if we don't know all the details, instead of digging into the research, we just try and avoid it. That is the wrong decision in this market, because those are the most creative. They are going to get the most deals done. So on that note, and FHA, that's another thing. Just like VA, there's a lot of loans that you can assume, but there's lenders out there right now that even though it says in the paperwork it's assumable, you need to be careful, because unless you talk to them about the conditions of assumability, they're charging crazy fees. They're basically trying to disincentivize people from assuming those loans. And the reason they're doing that is because they're not making the same margin that they were before. And so the financial institutions are trying to discourage that assumability clause. But agents, we're more creative, and we're not going to fall victim to just listening to them right off the bat. We are valuable to the equation because of our ability to negotiate and bring reason and logic to situations where sometimes it doesn't exist, right, Saul?
Absolutely. I'll tell you a story. In about 1977, we had 78, we had a really tough market. And there was an attorney who got a California Supreme Court decision for a school teacher named Cynthia Wellenkamp. And it was called the Wellenkamp decision. And Fred Crane was the attorney, and he built a career on this, all the way to the California Supreme Court. And what was declared was that loans are assumable, or you can do them subject to, and it doesn't matter whether they have a due on sale clause. It does, they automatically are assumable. So Fred took this, it's a very interesting case, Cynthia Wellenkamp, all the way to the California Supreme Court. And then as soon as he got that decision, he started doing seminars around the state. And I paid like $99, which was a ton of money to go to a seminar. And that was before you had to have CE. So you didn't get CE credit. You just went to it because you learned about something that was brand new, and it was at a hotel and there was like 1,000 people there. And what he said was, don't be afraid based on this new law. The lenders are going to tell you one thing, but you can say that you came to my seminar and I told you something else, and this is the law. And we went out. And so then what happened was the federal lenders, the savings and loans, federal savings, they said, we're not controlled by the state. And so our loans don't fall under that Supreme Court decision. So one of the criteria for searching for property became, does it have a state chartered savings and loan or a federal savings and loan? Because if it has a federal savings and loan, there's no financing on that property because they're not going to negotiate and they don't have to. But if it's state chartered, they had to follow this rule. So just knowing that gave us this huge advantage over the other agents. They didn't have a clue. And it took them a while to figure it out.
That's awesome. That's incredible. So I've heard a lot of my agents say, you know, buyers are hesitating and they're saying, if only the rates were what they were before, then we would make a decision. And so one of the programs that we've been working on a lot for our agents to just understand and be able to research is structuring a buy down program. And we've all been talking about this in the industry, but for the agents that are listening, I'm curious, and I want you guys to put in the chat, have you guys used buy downs? Have any of you had questions or been confused by them? Or is there additional information that Saul and I can provide to incentivize you to get creative? I hear people saying, you know, go out and marry the house and date the rate. And one of the lenders that I work with, which a lot of you know him, Jeff Fitzer, he's amazing, with USA Mortgage, his company just came out with this new program. And it's called, oh gosh, now I'm butchering it. It's 2 P's. I'm going to look it up, but it's about possibility. And what they did is made it so that a buyer can refinance for free for the next 3 years. Possibility improvement plan, or it's about basically making the buyer have a guarantee, which I do this for my individual clients, where I guarantee if they're unhappy with the house, then I'll buy it back or I'll sell it for free. Now they have to buy a home of equal or greater value. So basically I'm investing my time to reverse the risk for the client. So if for any reason they're unhappy, they know they have that investment of my time to help the transition to the next house be easier. How many times have I had to do this in my career? I've been offering this guarantee for years, and I've only had to do it 1 or 2 times. Okay. But I've offered it a lot. So when things get stressful and your clients feel their back is against a wall, they really appreciate programs that you have in place. So this is a lender program. And what it does is makes them know, well, guess what? I'm not even going to have to worry about fees. I'm going to just be able to lock into a new rate if the rates drift down, and they have up to 3 years to use that benefit. In my mind, us as agents right now, what we need to be doing is out there looking, what do the lender partners that we can work with, what kind of programs do they have to make it a no-brainer for a buyer to commit right now? And how do you...
No, go ahead.
And how do you structure the deal so that your buyer wins? So part of that is knowing what you have access to. I learned about a program in Washington, D.C. today, Saul, where someone can get a grant for $75,000 or $750,000 to buy a commercial building to expand their business right now. I'm like, what? Like, there are programs out there that are phenomenal. So for the agents that have clients that are on the fence, find those programs, find the rate buy down so you can get them the rate they would have got last year right now and help them get over that fear.
Yeah, so we can talk a lot about all kinds of government money, financing, government block grant money coming into a neighborhood to make a neighborhood better. And if you know that there's going to be an upswing. So there's a lot to that, and there is that kind of money. Something else I think that might make a comeback are ARMs. We call them adjustable rate mortgages, adjustable mortgage loans. So back in my day, there were two types based on the lender: ARMs and AMLs, adjustable rate mortgages, adjustable mortgage loans. And there are very important things to know about them, and people should know about them because they're an option. And so, things like what's the starting rate and what's the maximum rate and what index is it tied to and how much can it go up over a 6-month period, or, there's all these loans have criteria and it makes them different. Well, here now as a real estate agent, I was at the time as a broker, I had the opportunity to give people, whether they used them or not, right? Here's some of the options in the marketplace. And the very first type of loan like that was called a VIR. It was a variable interest rate loan. And my second house that I bought, I used a VIR loan on it. And I think it capped at 12.5%, and it could go down to like 6%. But it's all cyclical, right? So the interest rate drifts one way or another, and over time it'll go up or down. And so it's things like due on sale clauses or the ability to refinance over a certain period of time with no fees. Those are the types of things I would think you'd want arrows in your quiver.
I just put a chat. I want you guys to let us know that are watching right now if you currently use ARMs, because what I'm seeing 4 months ago, the spread was not there. So if you were trying to help a client determine whether they wanted to use an adjustable rate mortgage or they wanted to do a 30-year fixed, you would almost always go with the 30-year fixed because it made financial sense. In the last 30 days, I've seen that spread start to adjust a little bit. And so what you're looking at, from my perspective, I've always trained my agents, they want to focus on what I call the break-even point. Okay. So let's imagine that the client is going to save $300 a month by going with that adjustable rate mortgage as opposed to the 30-year fixed. You would want to understand how long is the client going to live in the house to determine if that savings is worth it or if it's going to end up costing them money in the long run, right? So let's imagine that they were going to stay there for 30 years. Well, if the rate could go up at the end of a 5-year period, if it were a 5-year ARM, or a 10-year period, if it were a 10-year ARM, you would want to calculate how much it could go up because it's usually capped. So this is something some agents don't understand. If you're doing an ARM and it's subject to go up to 1% of the LIBOR or whatever it's tied to, right? You would want to calculate the maximum exposure that your client would have. And so for when I would calculate that, and it's not that hard to do, you can get a lender's assistance if you've never calculated it before. You would calculate out what year they would break even. So it's not necessarily the 5th year if it resets. No, because if the rate is at 6%, but because they're doing an ARM, they're getting 4 3/4, right? Well, you would have to wait to figure out at what month it would equalize out if the rate maximized and went up the most at the end of the 5-year period. It's not right at the 5-year period because they haven't even started chipping away at the average. And the chances of it going up the full percent are pretty slim, but let's just imagine that it did. Well, it might be year 7 before it would catch up. Saul, am I making sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you're back to this, this is really always in my mind, the role of a real estate professional, right? This is the consultative role. This is your business. You know these things that are available and you're able to differentiate yourself from your competition because they don't know this. And it really demonstrates expertise, which builds trust and confidence in the relationship. So to me, these are all the right things that people should do. And most people that I know, or a lot of people I know in the business don't. And I think that and I don't have real proof of this, but what I've seen over like the last 10 years, people are gotten spoiled because they didn't have to go do any of this and didn't have to. And then I hear people saying, well, I can't do that because I'm out of my lane. And I'm thinking, well, that used to be right in the middle of your lane. And the only reason it's not in your lane is you never had to play in that lane before.
Yeah.
And in real estate, cyclical, right?
Yes. And when the market's tough, guess what? Your lane is how you advise someone to have confidence in their decision and protect their interests. That's your lane. That doesn't mean you're a tax advisor. It doesn't mean you're a financial advisor, and it doesn't mean you're a lender. It means you're responsible for bringing the right knowledge and information from professionals to your clients. And if you're not out there bird dogging opportunities, you're not bringing it. If you're trusting your client to go find the lender, shame on you. I totally disagree with that decision. You're the professional. And for me, and anybody who's done a lot of deals, you have lost business having the wrong lender partner, period.
Sure.
If you tell me, oh no, I've always had great lender partners on the other side, I will tell you how many deals you've done, and it's under 5. You've gotten lucky. Like, you have to be the reason that your clients go through the process smoothly by recommending the right people. And the only way you can do that is if you're really networking and you really have your finger on the pulse and you know all of the programs, all of the things that can save your clients money.
So part of the value you bring is you're a curator,
Yeah.
right? You're a curator. People that they're too busy with their life to pay attention to all these things, but that's what you do. You pay attention to all these things. You don't give them the things that aren't in their best interest. You curate this information and you bring them what they need to know. And that's the value of the role that you bring.
Absolutely. That's exactly why I believe we don't have a fear of, the company that came in, what was it? Purple Bricks?
Purple Bricks.
Yeah. They were in and out of the US like that. Right? The companies that are struggling right now, there are a lot of companies that are trying to replace us and they are bleeding out. And I am celebrating that. But I'm celebrating that because I have belief in our ability to change the outcome for our clients. And part of that is knowledge. But part of it is they're in an emotional trauma when they're going through this because they don't do it very often. And they need someone to hold their hand and help them and normalize their fears and emotions throughout the process. So let's talk about what you do when a deal gets in trouble, right? There's solutions that some agents have and other agents lose the deal. So one of the things I will say about myself, I am fiercely committed. If my client wants the house, I am not someone who gives up easily. So recently we had a really unique situation. We had a client, actually it was so unique that the agent, it was an agent on my team, and the lender agreed to give the client 100% of their commission. 100%. I'm not saying I agree with that. I'm saying they both felt so bad for him. He was part of a government relocation and the government never reimbursed him for his move, and it was on his credit card. It was $14,000, and that's what was preventing him from getting the loan. And the lender and the agent felt so bad about it. They couldn't figure out a workaround, And they said, listen, sir, we can't believe this has happened to you. We're going to give you our commission to solve it. Well, the lender got so creative. He found a program where they could use, and I hope I'm saying this correctly. They were able to use the rental value, the potential of the rental value for the qualification instead of his debt and income. And so it was a different financial structure. And ultimately, the client, the lender, and the agent were all crying at the settlement table because everybody got paid. He got a really good deal that he was very happy with, and the deal went through. But it was creative financing. It was an outside the box program. Because what happened when the lender said, we'll give you the money, and the agent said, we'll give you the money, it wasn't enough. The deal still wasn't going to happen. And everybody ended up winning because they got creative with the financing, right? So there's programs out there where we just used one of these to buy an Airbnb. It wasn't based on our income. It wasn't based on our debt to income ratios. It was based on the Airbnb's potential income at the end. And then they took that after renovated value because it was a renovation. So it was complicated too. And that's how they determined the loan parameters.
So you bring up a couple great points there, Carrie. One is different qualification criteria for different types of loans.
Yes.
So there's a just expanded marketplace. Why? Because really when people invest, what they're investing in is cash flow. And so they're investing in streams of income. And so what stream of income, how much do I have to invest to get a particular stream of income? That's value, that's cap rate, right? So I get a certain amount of income for, and so that's what people are looking for. And so you'll see in the private market, especially different types of private loans and scenarios creative. But I think even in general, we're starting to see a change in loan criteria, which is the loan qualification criteria we've had since like 1948, right? That you have to, and FICO scores and all of that. And we found that there are issues with that and problems with that. And I think the big institutions are working on new ways to look at qualifying people. And we'll see that over the next couple of years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, completely agree. Is there any other programs or types of financing that you feel, oh, actually, can I say one more?
Sure.
The 203K loan. The FHA 203K loan, in my opinion, is commonly overlooked, okay? Because people assume if they want to renovate a property to add value, they're going to have to get a hard money loan, or they're going to have to get a construction loan, and it's going to be very complicated and very difficult and or very expensive, right? So usually things are expensive and easy, or complicated and harder. But the FHA 203K loan is actually not that complicated. They can get that loan done in 45 days. And what it does is give your clients the ability to add some renovations and add some value to the property, which often results in instant equity. So we're starting to teach a seminar about getting instant equity. Why? Well, because buyers are hesitating because they're afraid of where the market's going, right? So as an agent, how do you have a creative strategy that gives them the peace of mind that they'll have equity? Simple. They have to do a little work, and buyers historically weren't willing to do that. But if you're creative as an agent and you already have the right construction team, or you already have access to the right people in your community because you've been in the business for a while, you can put those people together in a partnership and create a program where they can get instant equity in their property simply by leveraging something like a 203K.
So it's a couple good points. One is FHA has a number of different programs. People should research them. Mm-hmm. Right? And because and they might fit. And then if you have knowledge of it, when you're out talking to people, you might hear a circumstance where it all of a sudden it clicks and you've got a client, right? So, that kind of research, knowing about that makes a lot of sense. And then you touched about putting people together. So you're talking about limited partnerships or family partnerships, or just groups of people that want to own together?
I'm not talking about that. I'm saying I have a plumber, I have a painter. I'm saying if you're wanting your client to do the renovation, often they're not comfortable doing the renovation because they don't know who they would hire and they're afraid to do the work. So if you say, I have my team of people that are going to take good care of you, and you have confidence that they are going to take good care, then you can provide a really amazing solution. So I had a program that I used to call New Home by You. And basically I would bring to my dumpiest listings all of these beautiful finishes. I had a box that kept in my car. It was different cabinet samples, different flooring samples, and countertop samples. And I would say, I have the most incredible news. When people would walk into the open house, I would say, this is a New Home by You opportunity. And they're like, what does that mean? I say, you get to design it. It's you don't have to buy a brand new home in order to customize it, but it does have to qualify for the New Home by You program. And it does. And they're like, okay. So I would literally be like, which cabinets do you like? So instead of noticing the fact that the listing was a complete dump, they would notice, I want the white cabinets in here. What's the kitchen layout going to look like? And I would help them visualize the end. And then I would put together for my seller, instead of them spending the money up front and them taking the risk on doing the renovation, I would put it all together. I would finance it. Now today, agents, you have all these incredible partners like Curbio, Max House Design. There's tons of them that'll come in and they'll finance it. So you don't have to. But back in the day for me, I was young and I was hungry and I had a little bit of capital. And so I financed it, and I would renovate the kitchen before it would close sometimes. Sometimes it would close because that was my seller's request, and I would go in and renovate it before the buyers moved in. It's all about being creative. And in the market today, it's time to bring that creativity to the table to get more deals done.
Yeah, and there's plenty of opportunity to do it. And so where's the market going? How's things in your market?
So you know what's interesting, and I know we're almost out of time, but I'm excited to share this. I'm very hands-on as a leader. So I get daily reports from all of my inside sales agents. I think I have 8 of them. I get reports from all of my new agents that are still looking for a lot of accountability, and they're looking for a lot of support. And what I've noticed is many of them have been competing in the last week. They've gone into offers thinking they could be a little aggressive, and they've lost, right? So we're starting to see more competition in our marketplace right now. And we had a lot of agents win in the last week, but they had clients that had lost. And then they had to go back and rethink how they were bidding. And so they were telling their clients, you can have home inspections back. You can have appraisal contingencies back. You can have financing contingencies back. And I just want to caution agents, our job is to be a consultant. I would want you to be really careful that you are not telling the client what to do. No. You are guiding them. You are explaining their decisions, because 30% of clients fire their real estate agent when they lose an offer. Why? Because the agent says, do this, this is what you should do. And they say, okay, I'll listen to you, Saul. You're the agent. You tell me what to do. Saul tells me what to do. I sign the contract and then I lose. Who do I blame?
Absolutely.
Oh, he told me what to do and I listened, and it's his fault, right? So for the agents out there, your job is to, just my perspective, coach the client. Here's the scenarios. Here's what you need to understand about this decision. Here's what you need to understand about whether you have a home inspection or you buy the home as is. And here's the options in between. Where's your level of comfort and how much do you want the home, right? Those are, you're the leader who's facilitating the decisions. You're not the decision maker, because you're not the one writing the check, and you're not the one that's going to lose the home or win the home, depending on how that goes. So we're seeing a little more competition, and it's exciting. I'm loving it.
Well, so it's like, how do you win? Here's how you win. You help people take information and turn it into insights. And then they're able to make decisions. So obviously, the more information that you can bring to the table, and then you can put the information into context. We say text without context is pretext. And so you want to put the information about home buying into that individual or that couple, the family, into their life. You put the information into context. It gives, allows for insight, and allows for people to have confidence in you and make decisions. And
yes.
They're buying they're buying the greatest product in the world, real estate in the United States. And so, we know all our experience, for the most part, that people, if they hold it for any period of time, they always do better than when they got into it. It's a great product. It's a great place to be. It's a great thing to be able to offer people. It's a little bit more challenging today, but I think, again, Carrie, you're right on. It's about being creative. And
well, in NAR, I don't know if you saw the stats NAR just published. I'm going to end with this, and I know we're out of time, and then I have one more quick thing to mention, but NAR just said we are actually not down as a country when you look at the stats for 2022. We're not. We went up so much in the beginning of 2022 that we've gone down a little bit, but as a country, we're not down. And you know what they're saying for 2023? The market's not going to go down either. And in 2024, it's predicted to go up. So for all of you that are having this heartburn and internal crisis, am I helping people make the right decision to buy? The answer is yes. Saul's absolutely right. Over time, just look at the history of the universe, right? We are not in 2008. And so as agents, it's important for us to have that internal compass that helps us to know we're doing the right thing and guiding our clients to make a good financial decision. I always teach my team, if someone's paying $2,000 of rent, the only sure thing is they're going to lose $24,000, right?
Yep.
Interest on rent is 100%. So I wanted to mention one other important thing, you guys. There is early access Black Friday deals going on with LCA. So I'm not sure. Oh, check your email, because they're going to be sending them out. I'm going to be checking my email too. So I'm just so thankful to LabCoatAgents, because you guys provide educational opportunities. I learn from Saul whenever we do this. I learn from Mike Bernier. I just feel blessed to be able to be in a community where we foster learning. I mean, Saul talked about paying $99, and that lesson you learned back then, we're teaching to people today. It's incredible. So good for you guys for coming today on this Friday afternoon. I hope everyone has a fantastic weekend. And Saul, it's great to see you.
Great to see you, Carrie. Have a great Thanksgiving, I think. Huh?
Okay, bye.
Take care.